kindness. Once again, I'm deeply privileged and honored. This session, we will largely focus on one of the pain points the industry is facing as a whole, like how do we get better at forecasting? And more importantly, how do we get better at forecasting the right talent and the skills that are required for now and in the future? I've been having multiple conversations with our clients, and while there is a lot of interest and excitement about skills-based forecasting, many organizations are also reporting as they're not truly there. And what is your opinion about forecasting in general, and how you align with business priorities, and more importantly, how do you tactically convert that into talent acquisition, right? I know there is opened with a heavy question,
We'll
but I
just
thought I
jump
would
right in, Vijay.
jump right but I'm just curious to learn from you because we have only 30 minutes. I wanted to jump right in. So.
Yeah, no, awesome. So it's wonderful, Vijay, to be talking to you about this topic, and thank you for having me. And we think a lot of our partnership with you and with Draup and the value that we get from the tool. So thank you. You know, first, I think as I think about PepsiCo and a company of 330,000 associates, and the fact that we have operations in over 200 countries, and we have multiple sectors and regions, so there's a complexity to our business. And as I reflect on your question, one of the things that kind of comes to my mind is I'm not sure that we're ever going to be great at doing this in all places, right? So one of the things that I think is what we're trying to do, and where we try to focus, is how do we prioritize the places where this is going to matter the most, right? And so a couple of examples. I think one that we have our eye on: early career talent. So when we think about, like, what is that pipeline of future leaders, how do we make sure that we're trying to understand skill sets needed, forecast volumes needed, where are we going on, in the US, what schools are we going to, as an example. I think a second place where we try to focus some of these efforts is as we're building new capabilities within the company. So, a couple years ago, we were really sort of focused on standing up a strategy and transformation function within the company. That's a lot of new capabilities around digital talents. And so being able to work with that team, forecast needs there, look at skills, and understand is an example of trying to prioritize. And then I think another place is, for PepsiCo specifically, over the last few years, we've really been scaling up our global business services, which is, multiple hubs in different places around the globe. And so how do you really think in tandem with those types of transitions of, what work is being done where, and how talent acquisition can scale up in partnership with the business with the right skill sets in different locations. So those are a few examples of where I would say prioritizing and focusing has been really important to us, so that we're not trying to boil the ocean.
Brilliant. As you are narrating the complexities of what you are dealing with in terms of workforce segments, it just amazes me. So first of all, once again, deeply honored to listen directly from you. Like you are talking about GBS on the business services to frontline workers to technology workers. One of the common questions, Blair, while we are in that lens, there is now two views on AI evolving, right? One that says that's going to enable more work, more roles, more skills, and one that is going to possibly say limited work, more automation, etc. I just wanted to get your thoughts on what sort of efficiency factors or models you are expecting when you plan your workforce because of AI, and do you see that as a force multiplier? I know that's again a tough thing to predict, but or do you think that's more an efficiency play at this point for you? Just curious to see where you are, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think, there's a I think a general level of excitement around what some of these capabilities can actually, enable a company like PepsiCo to be able to do as we, as we think about, putting tools in the hands of, our sales teams, or enabling, like if we use the sales example, enabling our sales team to work closer with our customer to provide more, innovative solutions and products to our consumers to create the smiles that we want to create. So there's a lot of capability within new tools and technologies that is an absolute force multiplier. I also think that there's, some of the things that we're thinking about within supply chain, for instance, is there's going to be, different types of roles that we know we're going to need to recruit. And so now we're thinking about, in the next 3 to 5 years, how do we ensure that we have the right talent strategies to be able to recruit for some of those positions that we're going to need, higher volume of talent. And so if you think about some of the, we have machine operators. Well, those roles may become more advanced because you have more automation. So we have to be sure that we're upskilling internal talent, but that we're also prepared to be able to recruit in sets that we know are going to be very competitive. So I think I keep saying it kind of, we segment things a little bit, but I think it's important because depending on where we're focused in the company is kind of what talent strategy we have to put behind it. But I think there's a level of excitement about the capability it enables for our workforce, as to your point, kind of this force multiplier, and seeing the positives there.
Got it. And this segmentation aspect that you mentioned, it's very clear that's what you take a very segmented approach, approaching different workforce with different assumptions and different protocols. Am I restating that correctly? Because each workforce segment has its own assumptions, has its own trajectories for growth, supply demand characteristics, and so on. One thing that I always found fascinating in my team's interaction with your team is how your TA team is very connected to the business, and we don't see that much in other companies, and we don't say that lightly because we learn a lot from your team, whether it is on the sustainability aspects of supply chain, you mentioned that as an example, or going a little deeper into fake technologies within AI, machine learning, and so on. What is your advice for and I see that as a very critical attribute for succeeding in forecasting, right? Like understanding the business needs. Is there any best practice that you can give other companies in anything that you would like to say? Because I found that aspect of your organization very refreshing, very rewarding for a data partner like us to work with. Just curious what sort of best practices you kind of implement in your system to enable that output.
Yeah. So I think, one of the great things about PepsiCo is I think that HR as a function is viewed very seriously in its partnership with the business. So we start in a strong place, but I think that talent acquisition and our team, we put a lot of emphasis on that business partnering aspect of things. And so a few of the things that I think we try to do to click up that value of our partnership is, one, data is really important. So sometimes I think it's natural where you might hear somebody say, well, we don't have good workforce planning. And so therefore, I always am reactive. And my response to something like that is, well, we actually have data as a talent acquisition team. When you look at historical data, what's your 3-year hiring trend, what levels have you been hiring? And we can actually take data to the table to say, okay, HR partner, business leader, this is the historical trends that we've been seeing. Do we anticipate that this year's going to be similar? And then we can help start that discussion, even if somebody isn't handing us what we feel like would be, a perfect workforce plan. I don't know one that exists.
Got it. Got it.
And then I think the other thing is too, like as we're thinking through some of the big transformations that the company may go through, how do we make sure that our talent acquisition team, from recruiter to recruiting leader to myself, is continuously tuning in to what those transformations are and ensuring that we build our own knowledge, right? So I think that's really important, that we have a responsibility to understand why is our company, making a digital transformation? How can we contribute to that? What is the external insights that we can bring to the table? Because talent acquisition is, a key function within HR that has a pulse on the external market. So, so my push, is always, we have an incredibly important voice at the table. Let's make sure that we're at the table to use that. And so those are some of the things, Vijay, that I think, I always tell recruiters, don't underestimate the importance that you play because of what that other functions don't necessarily have the same insights, because we're out there every day talking to talent.
I think that's brilliantly put, because you can effectively play a role of a consultant and bring back facts and findings to the business, which is, I must say, majority of your team members do it really, really well, and that excites us so much. In this journey, Blair, one related question, because a lot of leaders have asked me this question, right? So towards the end of 2022, the war for talent was just at its peak. Now, because of the anticipated economical headwinds, we are still talking about that, but not talking about it so much, right? So we are kind of in this dichotomous environment where some segments, the war for talent continues, some segments we are more talking about efficiency. And the dynamic pace at which talent acquisition need to adjust to that, it's got to be mind-boggling for you to manage that and translate that to your team, because you can't take your eye off of the goal, because the demand, what you are building, what you are planning for. First of all, do you is that something you recognize, or how do you handle that? That's the second part. So if you recognize that, because this already the third and the fourth quarter is supposed to be better in terms of business, and the war for talent is slowly picking back up again, the conversation. So I was just wondering how you handle that dynamic as a leader.
Yeah. Look, I sort of have a mindset that we are constantly competing for talent, right? And I think that's a positive mindset to have, rather than, oh, now we aren't. I mean, I actually just had a conversation with one of our partners the other day saying, we used to call people like active talent and passive talent.
Okay.
And I said, but in today's world, we have to sell to everybody, because even your so-called active talent is, applying at multiple companies or getting multiple offers. So no longer can we have a mindset that, oh, they applied to our role, they're active to us, and we can, sort of rest on, get comfortable with that. I don't think we can anymore. I think that, I think talent is really smart. They have transparency to lots of different companies, lots of different jobs. And so we're constantly competing, I think, to get talent. Now, with that being said, I think that where we try to, build an advantage for ourselves is by, thinking a little bit longer term. So this is where, tools like Draup help us to really, think through where, as they say, like, where's the puck going? And what are some of the talent pools that we want to start positioning ourselves and our brand with, so that, so that we can be part of the competition. Right? We always want to be part of the competition, but I do think that we're always competing for talent. I think the other thing too, Vijay, is when, yes, there are going to be times where, it's more competitive, but I think in times where maybe there's a little bit of that lull, how do you take advantage and use that as an opportunity? And if you think about like tech right now, which obviously a lot of people are talking about, one of the insights is, some talent that previously was only thinking about big tech actually has opened up their aperture to think about other companies, because they know that there's a lot of really wonderful opportunities outside of just big tech. Well, I want to make sure PepsiCo is positioned that those individuals who are thinking bigger than just tech are understanding why PepsiCo should be part of their thought process. So we've been building, our brand, employer brand, with different cohorts, whether that be digital talents, early career talents, where we focus specifically on some of the cohorts where we want to make sure our message is resonating positively, so that we're taking advantage of the opportunity of the talent marketplace as well, in a positive way.
Got it. That's a brilliant opportunity for a company like Pepsi, right? Because you have, the last few years, you have invested so much into digital transformation, where in some aspects you have a sophisticated stack like a software company. And,
yes.
And you have, the other great thing about you is like you have tons of data that you don't, if a data scientist comes in, they can straight away plug into the experiments. I'm going to change gear a little bit again, still on the forecasting part. I know how committed you are as an organization for diversity and inclusive talent. Of course, the challenge is how do we continuously increase the opportunities for diverse talent? In your opinion, as you see in the last 5 years, is the landscape improving, or do you face similar challenges? And what is sort of your forecasting targets? I know that will keep increasing in terms of the how much you want to set as target. How do you handle that ever-growing, sort of the goals that you set yourself, the stretch goals that you set yourselves, and the market conditions? What is your perspective on where that is heading?
Yeah, I mean, look, as a company, we're very serious about ensuring that our, representation of our talent is, representative of the communities in which we operate. And so, this isn't a passing thought for us. This is an embedded philosophy for PepsiCo in how important it is for us to be diverse as a company. And I think where we think about this actually in three different aspects of our business, our people, and our communities. And so, of course, talent acquisition and HR plays in this people space. But I think that the reason I mentioned those three pillars of PepsiCo's commitments is because it's important that we are looking at talent in a way of all the way from like, how do we give students opportunities within their education to how do we make sure that, you know, our executive team is diverse and that we're consistently, you know, pushing ourselves at the top of the house as well. So we have like a scholarship program, for instance, that we call our Smile Scholarship, where we're providing scholarships for individuals who are getting their associate's degree, and then we're giving them the scholarship to finish their junior, senior year to get, you know, their bachelor's degree. So that's something that, you know, hopefully we can help, you know, students continue to build their careers. Now, some of those students will choose to come work for PepsiCo, which is wonderful. And that helps, you know, us to continue to build. And some of those students will go get a career with someone else. But the important thing is that we're serving people in sort of a different way. Then I think with representation and kind of that commitment of companies of thinking about it through the entire you know, early career all the way up through executive, then you have different opportunities, I think, to reach different talents, which helps us from a recruiting standpoint to say, how do we think about some of what we're doing with our messaging, with our, you know, even job, you know, like job architecture, because within sales and supply chain, those are really, you know, where we have where the sort of bread and butter of our business. So we want to make sure that we have roles and schedules and things that can allow us to have, you know, females coming into those roles, for instance, which is really important. So yeah, so I think that it's, you know, we're doing programs like Ready to Return, where, you know, thinking about people who have been out of the workforce and how we bring them back in, or we're scaling designate programs where we can identify talent early and give them a great onboarding experience, and then they're able to move into roles. So, you know, there's different strategies, I think, for different components of where we want to continue to increase diversity.
Got it. That's very helpful, because that's one key aspect of your variable within the forecasting model. And I know you do it so well, but it's great to understand the little bit of details behind that planning. So,
but you can also see, Vijay, I think, sorry, but with the planning aspect, these are all like programs and thoughts that are not necessarily just solves for filling a rec, right? So that's why I think what you're talking about with the planning and the forecasting, it's important, because these are, you know, efforts that we do that we hope we're building over time. And so that planning and forecasting piece is incredibly important to the success.
Got it. And these tactically, Blair, do you develop multiple scenarios and go after that? Like, let's say you are planning to build a specific capability. Is there from a tactical forecasting standpoint, do you have scenarios around that particular capability? Let's say this generative AI capability, you are hiring towards that. How does that plan translate into action? I'm wanting some insights from from the front, war front, right? Like, because it's war for talent. So when you go after, do you know when you're building new capability, right? Innovative capability, how do you go about translating that plan into an action? Just curious to get your thoughts on that. So then the forecast becomes real.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, you know, it's an important component, making it happen, right? You know, if I think about building, you know, some new capabilities over the last couple of years with our strategy and transformation team, I think a lot of the understanding, you know, the demand from the business, of course, and then thinking about what's that location strategy. Some of the things I think bringing it to action, Vijay, is yes, you have to understand the talent. You have to understand the talent availability. You have to understand the talent motivations, right? So there's that piece of it up front where we are really getting the insights from the market and getting the insights from, the talent pools. But there's also the other aspects of it from a talent acquisition standpoint, which is once you start to hire people into the organization, we we did a lot of work in just, helping to educate hiring managers on, okay, what are the processes of hiring now that you've come into PepsiCo?
Okay.
And making sure that we have, a smooth candidate experience for people coming in through new hiring managers, new processes. So there's the talent intelligence piece, and then there's some of the realities of how you scale up. And I think we looked at, and I have an amazing team who worked really closely with the business to prioritize. But also, when you are bringing new capabilities in, sometimes you have to change kind of your model of thinking. So if you think about, you open a rec, you recruit for a rec, but they had to think more like, how do we do higher volume recruiting events because we're trying to hire at scale. So there's just a little bit of what can we do differently in our processes to be able to bring that to action. And then if you think about like candidate motivations, okay, so we have our global employer brand, but how do we really make that resonate with individuals who, may not know what PepsiCo is doing in their digital transformation? So we have to help bring real examples to life through our storytelling. And so I think that you have to look at the entire end-to-end process, from understanding demand to understanding the candidate to understanding the talent pool, then to working with your business to be able to attract that pool and changing and updating some of your processes, like how you're hiring, to be able to make it all come to life.
Got it. You present an unbelievable workflow for a recruiter where I want to come and work as a recruiter for you. So it's unbelievable. I think that is required in the market, a little bit of reimagining the role of a recruiter. Would you agree to that statement, Blair?
Yes, I do. I think that, sometimes people say, like, what do you think makes a good recruiter? And I say, I think being somebody who wants to understand the business and has that curiosity, somebody who is has creativity in how they want to solve problems and come up with new solutions. And I also think that, somebody who kind of is always learning, because there's different there, when you're thinking about our industry, we're sort of constantly changing and evolving. And I think recruiters have to understand, that evolution in a sense of how we continue to compete for talent, because, they're at the front lines. They're the first representative of PepsiCo. So we have to be the best, and we have to be modern in our ways of working and connecting with talent.
Got it. I know we are coming up on time, but one of my questions that I know you read a lot. You are well connected. What are if talent acquisition is at a critical juncture where a lot of systems are evolving within your space? Of course, we also provide data sets, and you also work with your workforce planning team. There's just a lot of data coming your way, your organization way. What are 2-3 overall guiding principles on how to treat data, when to bring human judgment, and in order to make the right quality decision? What are your best practices or guidance that you could give us?
Yeah. So look, I think where where I think in talent acquisition, we try to look at, how data can, as I mentioned earlier, kind of evolve the value of the conversation, right? So if you can go to a hiring manager and be able to have a real conversation with data, whether it's intelligence that we've gotten from, pulling insights out of Draup combined with some of the historical data I was talking about before to really help get to a place where we can have a nice talent strategy that's agreed to at the beginning of the process. I mean, that really helps a recruiter show up in a way that the business leader can feel that value. I'd love to be in a place where, when a hiring manager is opening up a rec, we can immediately serve up data of what does your external marketplace look like? What does your internal marketplace look like? And then how do we want to make sure that we're going after the right talent? I also think, when we've looked at processes, if you think about something like the offer process, that can sometimes be daunting or, slow and full of approvals and HR and business and total rewards. We actually did a lot of work to try to simplify that process in using data that can help us understand, where should our offer kind of be in a predicted pay, because we want to ensure, pay equity. We want to ensure things, with internal, compression and those types of things. But we want to be able to get that data earlier in the process, and we want to be able to get it faster so that we can make sound decisions before we get all the way to the very end. So I think that these are the types of things where if you look at your process and the experience and simplification, that data can play a really, really important role in raising the value of what recruiting can offer.
Great. Finally, I just have one more question. I know we are at time. Any feedback for improvement for us? We obviously love working with you, and we want to continue to up our game in terms of what we do. So anything that comes to your mind in terms of what we do well and what we should do different?
Yeah, I mean, we truly value the partnership, and I think that, one of the things I really appreciate, Vijay, that you guys do is not only respond to, questions that we have or, reports that we're asking for, but you're also sending us insights and saying, hey, here's some of the things that we've been thinking about, and we want to put this in your lap so maybe you can think about it. And I just really appreciate that, because I always, say, like, there's things I should be thinking about that I may not even know I should be thinking about, but you're giving me those ideas of, yeah, you know what? Vijay just sent this really interesting piece of research. That is something that I need to now put on my radar. So I think I appreciate that, and keep doing great work. And you guys have really been great partners to us, and we appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. I know I'm 1 minute, 2 minutes over your time. Very, very valuable. There's a lot to unpack here. Really appreciate your time here, Blair.
Thank you, Vijay.
Thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye-bye.